Hey friends. Welcome back. Before you scroll away, ask yourself, how many of these inventions are still inside your body? Still in your air, your feed, your fridge, your blood? If any of this felt uncomfortably real, share it. Say it. Progress doesn't pause. Neither should we. You look back at human history and see brilliance laced with wreckage. You invented light and shadow. You made medicine and then marketed poison. You built a connection and ended up lonelier. Every solution became its own sequel. You weren't destroyed by ignorance. You were dismantled by your own genius, tool by tool, bite by bite, pill by pill. You called it improvement. You called it necessary. But mostly, you didn't call it anything at all. You just lived through it. And somehow, you're still here. Asterisk. You wake up in the heart of the Roman Empire and you're feeling off. Not spiritually. Neurologically. There's a persistent buzz in your skull, like bees whispering secrets directly into your frontal lobe. Your memory's slippery, your decisions questionable, and your impulse control. Let's just say it's been better. Congratulations, you're being poisoned. Slowly. Elegantly. With infrastructure. Rome, the jewel of ancient civilization, a city that invented heated floors and concrete that can outlast time itself, also managed to lace its greatness with a slow-acting, civilization-wide neurotoxin, lead. The Romans called it plumbum. Yes, that's why we call it plumbing. And yes, that should horrify you. The very word we use today for modern cleanliness and water purity is derived from the material that turned Rome's upper class into a lurching, hallucinating mess. Lead pipes were a marvel. Malleable, easy to install, able to last forever, just like the permanent brain fog you now carry around. As a middle-class Roman, you live in an apartment complex so fragile and flammable it makes cardboard look like fortress architecture. But it is water, piped in from distant aqueducts that snake across the hills like veins of empire. The water passes through carefully constructed lead pipes before it spills into your cistern. It looks clean. It tastes metallic. It carries death in parts per million. Your day starts with a sip from a lead-lined jug, followed by a splash on your face from a basin that's been soaking in neurotoxin all night. You head out into the Roman street, past murals of triumphant gods and civic glory, and duck into a public fountain to fill your water skin. The same fountains that serve the entire district. The same pipes. The same poison. You walk by a patrician villa, admiring its decadence. Marble columns, gold-trimmed mosaics, and underneath, the very best plumbing money can buy. Solid lead. Conduits, buried deep. The rich spared no expense to ensure that their homes flowed with the soft glug of heavy metal and subtle demise. At the local taberna, you buy a cup of wine. It's been sweetened, of course, with sapa, boiled grape syrup reduced in a lead cauldron. It tastes divine, because lead acetate has that effect. It was known as sugar of lead. The sweetness lingers. So does the damage. Your limbs feel heavier this week. Your hands tremble a little when you hold your stylus. Writing's harder. Focusing is harder. You thought it was age, or maybe the stress of hauling amphory for your employer. But the truth is simpler, more insidious. Your neurons are wilting. Your body is slowly shutting down pathways that used to work fine, now clogged with microdoses of ancient progress. Your children. They are not immune. They drink the same water, eat from the same pots. Some are slow to speak. One has fits of rage that terrify your wife. You blame the gods, or fate, or bad omens. You never consider that the thing carrying water into your home might also be draining your future out of it. If you were rich, you might see a physician. He'd suggest less wine, maybe more prayers. He won't tell you it's the plumbing. He doesn't know. Nobody really knows. But some suspect. The engineer Vitruvius wrote once that lead causes pallor and disease. He recommended clay pipes instead. But clay is fragile. Lead is elegant. And Rome loves elegance. Your boss, a mid-tier bureaucrat with enough clout to own a villa, has been acting strangely lately. He forgets your name. He lashes out at clients. He weeps when no one is watching. Once, he walked naked into a temple and declared himself Jupiter. They say it's the pressure. You suspect it's the water. Or the wine. Or both. Maybe it's just Rome itself, a city addicted to its own excellence. Blind to the rot in its foundation. Historians centuries later will argue whether lead poisoning helped kill the Roman elite. Whether it weakened their bodies, dulled their minds, and turned emperors into lunatics. Nero. Caligula. Commodus. Were they born mad, or did Rome's innovations ferment madness in their bloodstreams like sour wine? The empire didn't fall. All at once. It slipped. It staggered. It poisoned itself with pride and pipes. And in the cracks of its marble greatness, the lead kept flowing. Into the palaces. Into the baths. Into the mouths of senators and slaves alike. You drink. You age. You forget things. You stop dreaming. You're not sick enough to die, just poisoned enough to fade. At 42, you collapse on your way home. Your heart gives out. Maybe a stroke. Maybe a seizure. Maybe just fatigue. Your neighbors mutter. Bad luck. A punishment from the gods. A coincidence. Your wife cleans your body and places a coin in your mouth for the ferryman. She draws water from the cistern one last time. And the pipe sings softly, as if it's laughing. You weren't killed by war, or crime, or even divine wrath. You were killed by innovation. By the soft metal that made Rome powerful, proud, and stupid. You drank civilization, and it drank you back. You light your first cigarette of the day with a ritual precision that borders on reverence. It's 1947, the war's over, the economy's booming, and the Marlboro man hasn't even arrived yet to shame you into buying filtered death sticks with extra masculinity. But you don't need a cowboy to tell you this cigarette is your friend. It calms your nerves, suppresses your appetite, and gives you a reason to stand awkwardly in public without making eye contact. It's a conversation starter, a fashion accessory, a stress reliever, and a slow-motion self-execution, all in one neat, pocket-sized package. The moment you inhale, your lungs absorb a finely tuned cocktail of nicotine, tar, carbon monoxide, arsenic, formaldehyde, ammonia, benzene, cadmium, and polonium-210. You don't know these names, but your cells do. They read them like a death sentence printed in invisible ink. Your blood thickens. Your heart strains. Your bronchial tubes start planning their retirement. You feel amazing. At least for now. Smoking is normal. Everyone does it. Doctors. Pregnant women. Children in black and white photos. You've seen. The ads. Your brand is recommended by physicians, backed by research, and allegedly easy on the throat. Inhaling smoke into your delicate respiratory tissues is marketed as a health choice, a lifestyle upgrade, a symbol of Western cool. You're not just smoking. You're achieving. In the office, cigarette breaks are sacred. Your boss smokes. Your co-workers smoke. The ashtray on your desk overflows like a grimy bouquet of exhaustion and peer pressure. Meetings begin with a scratch of lighters. Interviews, negotiations, awkward silences, all lubricated with the casual puff-puff of nicotine diplomacy. No one opens windows. No one questions the cloud of slow death fogging up the conference room. It's not pollution. It's ambience. At home, you light up after dinner, during sex, while holding your newborn, while driving 70 miles an hour in a steel death box with no seatbelt and an open Schlitz on the dashboard. You smoke while cooking, while vacuuming, while talking on the rotary phone to your mother who is also smoking. Your walls are yellow, your teeth are beige, your sense of smell has relocated permanently to another timeline. But you don't mind. Because it's not just a cigarette. It's a friend. It's comfort. It's cool. Hollywood told you so. You've seen Humphrey Bogart, James Dean, Audrey Hepburn, all smoldering icons exhaling glamorous plumes of carcinogenic confidence. They make it look easy. Sexy. Sophisticated. Nobody shows the hacking cough between takes. Nobody films the hospital visits. Not yet. Behind the scenes, a public health crisis is germinating in the soft tissues of your bronchi. The medical community suspects. Some even know. Lung cancer, once rare, is surging. Emphysema, heart disease. Stroke, rising like smoke signals no one wants to read. But the tobacco companies have money. They have lobbyists. They have scientists with flexible ethics. For every study that suggests cigarettes might be turning your lungs into charcoal pudding, they commission 3 more that say, maybe not. Maybe it's stress. Maybe it's genetics. Maybe it's the communists. And the ads, God, the ads. Pregnant women cradling their bellies under slogans like "is safer for baby." Baseball cards with Lucky Strike logos. Santa Claus with a carton of Camels urging you to give the gift of slow suffocation for Christmas. Even when they invent the filter tip, it's just theater. A tiny sponge meant to reassure, not protect. The tar still slides past it like a thief. Under a velvet curtain. You keep smoking. Why wouldn't you? It's cheap, it's everywhere, and quitting sounds like something only weak people do. You light another, your 5th, maybe 7th of the day, and think to yourself, at least I'm not one of those poor fools who eats margarine or drinks tap water. You don't realize you've already given up 10 years of life for the privilege of lighting sticks of dried leaf fire between your lips every 45 minutes. You're addicted. Not metaphorically. Biochemically. Nicotine hijacks your dopamine system, rewires your stress responses, and ensures that your next fix is never more than a craving away. You can't relax without it. You can't eat without one after. You can't wake up without a morning drag that scrapes yesterday's tar from your throat. Your lungs have stopped being organs. They are storage units for regret. The coughing starts small, morning phlegm, nothing serious. But it builds. Years pass. The ads start changing. Warnings appear on packs, tiny, apologetic, and easy to ignore. May be hazardous. Linked to health risks. Eventually, smoking kills. But it's too late. You're part of the cohort. The statistical dead weight dragging national life expectancy into the dirt. In the 50s, it was still sexy. By the 70s, it's a punchline. By the 90s, it's a lawsuit. Your lungs, once pink and greedy for oxygen, are now grey, spongy husks riddled with tar, nodules, and tumors that bloom like toxic flowers. The X-ray looks like a weather map forecasting a storm of doom. Your voice deepens. You wheeze. You sweat climbing stairs. You breathe like you're apologizing. The diagnosis is formal, clinical, and delivered in a tone reserved for death sentences. Lung cancer. Inoperable. They offer chemo. Radiation. Maybe surgery. You say yes because you still believe in miracles. You smoke on the way to the hospital. After all, it's just one more. Your family begs you to stop. You try. You fail. You try again. You succeed. But the damage has long since hardened into pathology. The end comes not with drama, but with slow retreat. You die coughing in a hospital bed that smells like bleach. And regret. Your grandkids don't remember the commercials. They just remember the oxygen tank. The rasp in your voice. The way you couldn't laugh without choking. You aren't killed by war, or plague, or famine. You were killed by marketing. By decades of smiling doctors holding up cigarette packs like medical diplomas. You were sold death in glossy wrappers, inhaled it gratefully, and paid for it with years you'll never see. And the worst part? You weren't alone. You were just one lung in a generation-sized ashtray. A crisp casualty in humanity's longest-running slow burn. You don't remember when asbestos first entered your life, because it was already there, stitched into your walls, woven into your ceiling, packed behind the boiler like cotton candy dipped in death. It's the 20th century, modernity has arrived. And with it comes a miracle material mined from the bowels of the earth and sold as the answer to every industrial prayer. Fireproof. Soundproof. Virtually indestructible. Asbestos is the architectural equivalent of a superhero cape, cheap, omnipresent, and destined to betray you. You live in a house wrapped in it. You work in a factory lined with it. You breathe it without knowing it. It flakes off insulation like dandruff. It floats through construction sites like a quiet snowfall of suffering. You sweep it up without a mask. You hang drywall next to it. You cut it, rip it, crunch it underfoot, unaware that each microscopic fiber is a biological fishhook lodging itself in your lungs. In the break room, nobody talks about it. They talk about union dues and sandwiches and the guy who lost a toe in the stamp press. No one mentions the white powder that coats everything. You assume it's just dust. Harmless. Just like everyone else. And why wouldn't you? The government approved it. The architects recommended it. The ads sold it as magic mineral and the safest thing since sliced bread, but with better fire resistance. Children played with it in science kits. Housewives sewed it into oven mitts. Firemen wore it like armor. This isn't some back alley chemical, this is officially sanctioned security. But your body isn't fooled. Not for long. Inside your lungs, the fibers embed themselves like tiny needles made of betrayal. Your immune system tries to fight them, but it's like wrestling ghosts. The fibers don't dissolve. They don't break down. They just sit there, generation after generation of cellular invaders, provoking inflammation, fibrosis, and eventually something much worse. Years pass. Decades. You develop a cough, dry, persistent, hollow. Doctors call it pleural thickening. They sound calm, but their eyes twitch. They run tests. X-rays. CT scans. The diagnosis clicks into place like a guillotine blade, mesothelioma. The cancer no one survives. A rare, cruel disease that doesn't just kill you, it keeps a calendar. Because asbestos works on a delay. 20 years, 30 years, sometimes 40. Enough time to build a life, raise a family, retire, and then, just when you think you've dodged it, it punches a hole through your chest cavity. The industry knew. Long before you did. By the 1930s, reports started piling up, factory workers coughing blood, miners wasting away, insulation installers gasping for air. But asbestos was profitable. It was patriotic. It insulated battleships. It strengthened tanks. It built skyscrapers. So they buried the data, paid the scientists, silenced the unions, and blamed the workers. They smoked too much, the company lawyers said. They didn't follow protocols. Protocols that didn't exist. You try treatment. It's barbaric. Surgery that peels away part of your chest. Chemotherapy that poisons everything but the tumor. Radiation that burns your ribcage from the inside out. The pain is biblical. The relief, non-existent. You count your breaths like coins. Each one hurts more than the last. Your voice thins. Your appetite disappears. You watch the world shrink to the size of a hospital bed. You die choking. Not quickly. Not cleanly. You drown on dry land, surrounded by machines that wheeze louder than you do. Your family is told it was natural causes. It wasn't. It was planned obsolescence. You were sacrificed for thermal efficiency. And you weren't alone. Entire neighborhoods poisoned. Generations condemned. Schools, offices, hospitals, all lined with death confetti. A modern plague wearing the mask of progress. By the time legislation catches up, it's too late. The asbestos is everywhere. In walls, ceilings, brake pads, ships, aircraft, homes. Even today, it lingers, quiet, patient, lethal. And the companies? Most dissolved. Their assets sold. Their executives retired in sun-drenched villas, their lungs blissfully fiber-free. They say we learned our lesson. But lessons require memory. And you, wrapped in a shroud of industrial dust, won't be remembered for your warnings. Just your absence. You weren't killed by fire or flood or famine. You were killed by the cure for all three. You trusted safety. And it made a coffin out of your breath. You wake up in revolutionary France, 1793, and the streets smell like sweat, piss, and panic. The monarchy is dead, the republic is new, and equality has come, delivered not through policy, but through a mechanical head chopper designed to kill. Swiftly, cleanly, and without discrimination. It's called the guillotine, and it is the most efficient symbol of enlightenment your justice ever invented. It looks elegant, even noble, a tall wooden frame, a weighted angled blade, and a little wicker basket for heads, like a picnic of nightmares. You've seen it up close, because executions are public now, festive even. There's bread, music. Families perched on shoulders. Kids laugh as aristocrats weep. You don't question it. It's not murder. It's progress. It was invented to be merciful. Before the guillotine, executions were theatrical and slow burnings, wheelings, axe swings that took 3 tries. They were cruel, chaotic, and inconsistent. But the guillotine, it's science. A democratized death machine approved by the National Assembly and named after Dr. Joseph Ignace Guillotin, who ironically opposed the death penalty but championed humane decapitation. The irony will not save him. Nor you. You're not a noble. Just a regular citizen who said the wrong thing at the wrong time. Maybe you complained about bread prices. Maybe you refused to cheer loud enough during a speech. Maybe your neighbor hated your face. None of it matters. The reign of terror has begun, and the Committee of Public Safety is about as safe as a bear trap. Every morning begins with lists. The condemned teachers, priests, bakers, ex-lovers are rounded up and marched through streets as crowds throw flowers or spit, depending on the mood. They reach the Place de la Revolution, where the guillotine stands like a god made of timber and steel. By noon, heads roll like fruit in a market. You stand in the crowd, watching the clean thunk, the twitch of limbs, the hiss of severed nerves. Some cheer. Some vomit. Most just watch, numbed by repetition. The guillotine doesn't care. It does its job with calm, mechanical precision. No bias. No hesitation. Just gravity, velocity, and finality. It was supposed to be humane. Swift. Rational. But when death becomes efficient, it also becomes addictive. The revolution promised liberty, equality, fraternity. But what it delivered was bureaucracy with a body count. The guillotine doesn't just punish crime, it enforces paranoia. Speak out of turn, and you're an enemy of the people. Associate with the wrong person, and you're a monarchist sympathizer. Wear the wrong hat, and it's treason. There are quotas to fill, reputations to defend, enemies to invent. Robespierre himself, once the face of justice, will eventually be devoured by his own machine. His last vision, a blade rushing down to meet his jaw. Your name gets added to the list one evening. No explanation. No trial. Just a knock at the door and a paper stamped with revolutionary righteousness. You're herded into a cell with others, some praying, some laughing, some already gone behind the eyes. You spend the night listening to distant cheers and trying not to breathe. Morning comes like a verdict. You're marched to the square. The sky is grey. The air smells like old blood and fresh bread. The guillotine looms, draped in a patriotic flag that doesn't flutter. The executioner is professional, almost bored. You kneel. Your neck fits the lunette. The wood is sticky. You try to think of something profound. You come up empty. The blade drops. You feel nothing. Then everything. Then nothing again. Your head hits the basket. Your eyes blink once, twice, a grotesque reflex. The crowd gasps. Then moves on. You aren't the first. You won't be the last. The guillotine will be used for decades, even into the 20th century. It will kill kings and commoners, traitors and scapegoats, until finally retired in 1977 with the last execution in France, long after most of the world decided state-sanctioned decapitation might not be the pinnacle of civilization after all. You weren't killed by injustice or malice. You were killed by optimization. By the idea that death could be improved. That justice could be industrialized. That human error could be eliminated if we just made the blade sharp enough. You died. In the name of progress. And the machine stayed clean. You're a soldier, 1916, ankle deep in mud and rats and the misplaced confidence of empires. The sun hasn't risen yet, but your orders have. You're going over the top this morning, out of the trench, across no man's land, straight into a wall of lead fired from a device invented to make war more efficient. The machine gun. You haven't seen one up close, but you've heard it. That rhythmic, chattering thunder. A typewriter fed on blood. It doesn't fire bullets, it sculpts landscapes out of corpses. Designed in the late 19th century by men who called it progress, the machine gun was supposed to make armies more humane, fewer men, faster battles, cleaner victories. But when humanity's best minds invent something with the sole purpose of multiplying death, you don't get cleaner wars. You get longer ones. The machine gun doesn't discriminate. It doesn't tire. It doesn't aim. It just continues. You hear it from miles away, echoing across a blasted field where nothing grows except the bones of last week's infantry. It's mounted behind sandbags, water-cooled, belt-fed, manned by 2 soldiers who won't need to reload until your entire platoon is vaporized into meat confetti. At 6 a.m., the whistle blows. You climb the ladder. Your boots squelch. You run. The first thing you feel is the air shredding around you. Then you see men fall, arms gone, faces missing, torsos folding in on themselves. It's not even shooting at you. It's just shooting. A few hundred rounds a minute. Each one with your name on it, misspelled and impersonal. You dive into a crater already occupied by a dead horse and half a Frenchman. You pray to every god you forgot in peacetime. The machine gun doesn't care. It just hums. In its early days, commanders underestimated it. Believed courage could outrun it. Believed uniforms would protect against physics. They sent waves of men toward it, thinking bravery was bulletproof. It wasn't. Battles that once took hours now took minutes. Casualties that once took months now arrived before breakfast. At the Somme, nearly 20,000 British soldiers died on the first day, many from machine gun fire. At Verdun, the guns didn't sleep for 300 days. It wasn't just a weapon. It was the soundtrack of mechanized despair. In the trenches, you dream of it. You fear it more than artillery, more than poison gas. Because at least those are impersonal. The machine gun looks at you. It tracks your movements. It punishes your hope. If you're lucky, it's your side operating it. If you're not, it's an invisible god of death nested behind wire and sandbags, waiting for the next batch of meat to run into its feeding lane. You survive. Somehow. They pull you back from the front. Your ears ring. Your uniform is crusted with blood, some of it yours, most of it not. You're promoted. They ask you to man the gun now. The irony doesn't register. You accept. It's heavy, complicated, beautiful in its cruelty. You load the belt, water the barrel, check the arc. The enemy appears. You pull the trigger. It bucks, it growls, it sings. Bodies fall. You don't even aim. You just sweep. You become the thing you feared. And it works. Too well. The generals take notes. They design new doctrines. New strategies. New ways to keep the machine fed. By the next war, they'll mount it on planes, trucks, tanks, anything with wheels or wings. By the time the 20th century ends, there won't be a battlefield without it. It will become the backbone of every armed force. Cheap, deadly, loyal. The ultimate equalizer. You were supposed to die for your country. But what you really died for was logistics. The machine gun didn't end war. It perfected it. And it didn't make heroes. It made statistics. You're born into a world already in motion. The streets roar. The skies hum. The air tastes like speed and something vaguely metallic. It's the 20th century and the internal combustion engine has won. The world is no longer powered by muscle or wind or even steam. It runs on tiny explosions happening inside metal boxes, each one a heartbeat of modern life. Cars, trucks, planes, ships, generators, if it moves, it probably burns. Gasoline. Diesel. Jet fuel. Every trip you take is a ritual offering to the gods of petroleum. You don't notice it at first. The traffic. The noise. The thin grey haze that never quite leaves the skyline. You're a child, breathing it all in, riding in the back seat without a seatbelt, windows down, lungs wide open to the roaring future. Your parents love their car. Everyone does. It's freedom on wheels. Suburbs sprawl into existence just to accommodate it. Highways slash through cities like concrete veins. Drive-throughs become sacred spaces. You learn to associate motion with meaning. If you're not driving, you're not living. The engine isn't just in your car, it's in your culture. Your economy. Your identity. The combustion engine gives you packages from across the globe, strawberries in December, overnight delivery of things you don't need. It builds your city. Powers your wars. Makes your vacations possible. You never question the smoke. Or the heat. Or the smell that clings to your clothes after standing near a busy intersection for too long. But deep in the engine block, something sinister is always happening. Hydrocarbons explode. Pistons compress. Exhaust belches out a cocktail of carbon monoxide, nitrogen oxides, and particulates so fine they can slip into your bloodstream through your lungs. The miracle of movement is also the science of slow suffocation. Cities choke. Children wheeze. Entire mountain ranges vanish behind a fog that isn't weather. And still, we drive. Because we must. The system was built around it. Trains. Too slow. Buses. For other people. Bikes. Cute idea. Walking. Laughable. You commute hours a day too. Work in a building surrounded by parking lots, stop at a gas station that smells like a chemical hangover, and count the cost not in money, but in time, in air, in organs. The oil keeps flowing. Wars are fought over it. Dictators funded by it. Oceans drilled. Forests torched. The price of fuel determines elections. The engine determines everything. You get older. The cities grow denser. The traffic worsens. The air thickens. Your lungs feel at first a tightness, a rasp, a new dependence on inhalers and apologies. Asthma becomes common. Heart disease spikes. Stroke risk climbs. Not just for the drivers, for everyone who breathes near them. Which is everyone. Meanwhile, the engine keeps purring. Politicians promise clean air and new solutions. Car companies unveil concept vehicles with zero emissions and infinite dreams. But the streets are still gridlocked with machines that cough and belch and roar. You buy a newer car. It promises efficiency. Lower emissions. But the truth is, you're still burning. Just slightly more politely. The planet notices. Temperatures rise. Ice melts. Storms get angrier. Droughts linger. Wildfires start where they never used to. You shrug. One car can't make a difference. But there are a billion of you. The combustion engine doesn't care. It just keeps spinning. Until one day, it doesn't. The pump runs dry. The air becomes unbreathable. Cities begin to rethink. But by then, it's baked into the atmosphere, into your lungs, into the architecture of your entire civilization. You weren't killed by a crash. You were killed by a million short trips to the store. You were asphyxiated by progress. One exhaust plume at a time. You thought the engine moved you forward. It did. Right off a cliff. You wake up in 1952, stretch your arms and inhale the crisp morning air laced, of course, with trace amounts of dichlorodepenyl trichloroethane. DDT, they call it. A miracle molecule. The savior of agriculture. The scourge of the mosquito. It's in your yard, your food, your bloodstream. And it's perfectly safe. The government says so. The ads say so. Scientists say so, at least the ones getting paid. You trust it because you're an American and America doesn't poison itself. Not on purpose. You live in a neighborhood where the city fogs the streets weekly, spraying a fine mist of insecticide from trucks that roll by like ice cream vans of doom. The kids run behind them, laughing, their tiny lungs soaking up chemical courage. You watch from your porch, cigarette in hand, marveling at how modern science has finally conquered nature. No more bugs. No more disease. Just a white picket utopia with slightly twitchier birdsong. At the grocery store, everything is bigger, brighter, longer lasting. Produce gleams like wax trophies. Milk doesn't spoil. Corn yields have tripled. DDT is in the soil, in the water, in the fat of every cow and chicken. Your dinner is perfectly seasoned with a pinch of death. But a slow death. A quiet one. At first, you don't notice. The robins vanish. The frogs go silent. Fish float belly up in creeks where your kids used to splash. The bugs disappear, yes, but so do the things that eat the bugs. Hawks. Owls. Eagles. Predators whose eggs thin until they shatter under their own weight. Rachel Carson writes a book, Silent Spring, and suddenly people start asking questions. Questions the chemical companies are not prepared to answer. They mock her. Discredit her. Call her hysterical. But the science is stubborn. DDT doesn't just kill insects. It bioaccumulates. It climbs the food chain, building up in fatty tissues, disrupting hormones, weakening immune systems. It doesn't break down. It just builds. And builds. Until entire ecosystems sag under its weight. You start seeing connections. The rise in cancer. The sterility in farm animals. The vanishing pollinators. You feel a tightness in your chest, but it could be anything: smoking, stress, the Cold War. You don't want to believe it's the very thing that's kept your lawn weed-free and your tomatoes pristine. But belief doesn't change chemistry. DDT is everywhere. It's global. Sprayed on crops, dumped into rivers, painted onto military barracks. It was used in World War II to control lice and malaria. It won awards. Saved lives. Then it kept going, long after the need was gone. It became habit. Convenience. Policy. You watch as birds return, slowly, after the bans begin in the 70s. But the damage lingers. DDT will be found in polar bears. In breast milk. In the tissue of unborn whales. It will linger in soils for decades, a ghost molecule whispering about hubris. You weren't killed by a predator or plague. You were killed by pest control. By the lie that something powerful enough to destroy life wouldn't eventually destroy you too. You trusted the white coats. The smiling ads. The silent spring arrived and you barely noticed. Because the poison didn't scream. It just settled. You're shackled to 5 others, neck chained, wrists raw, stomach hollow. The year is 1753 and you are human merchandise. One cargo unit in a ship's ledger. A living asset bought, branded, and boarded onto a floating warehouse of sorrow. This is the transatlantic slave trade, and it's not chaos, it's innovation. It's engineered. Systematic. Efficient. You were captured inland, days from the coast, sold by raiders who knew your name and now call you a number. You walked for weeks, barefoot, bound, beaten, herded like livestock toward a port built entirely to accommodate suffering. There you were inspected. Teeth checked. Muscles prodded. Naked under the sun while white men in white hats assigned your body a price. Then came the ship. You didn't know what it was. Just that it smelled like urine and iron and desperation. They shoved you below deck, into a hold too short to stand, too narrow to turn, packed so tightly you breathe other people's exhale. That smell never leaves. Blood, bile, rot, fear. You live in it. Sleep in it. Defecate in it. If you're lucky, you make it across. Many don't. Dysentery. Starvation. Suicide. Pregnant women give birth in filth. Corpses stay beside you for hours before they are thrown to the sea. Sharks follow the ships. They know the route. You land in the new world with a spine like rope, a body like tinder, and a name that's been erased. You're sold at auction, paraded, touched, compared. Like horses. Your new name is whatever your owner decides it is. Your job. Everything. Plantation labor. Sugar, tobacco, cotton, cash crops that fuel the global economy. You don't just work. You are the work. You are capital that appreciates when you breed, depreciates when you bleed. The system isn't lawless. It's deeply legal. Every beating, every rape, every backbreaking harvest is protected by colonial codes and church doctrine. Christianity blesses the whip. Science rationalizes your skull. Commerce scales your misery. Slavery isn't an accident, it's a business model. And it works. Profits soar. Nations rise. Empires flourish. Europe gets rich. America gets built. You get nothing. No family. No rights. No future. Just sunstroke and the sound of your own name pronounced wrong for decades. The worst part. It's not hidden. It's not shameful. It's normal. Celebrated. Institutional. Entire generations grow up believing you deserve it. That your body was made to toil. That your mind cannot comprehend. Freedom. They engrave it into textbooks, sermons, and bank ledgers. The abolitionists fight. Some win. Slavery ends in law, but not in life. The chains come off, but the system mutates into debt peonage, Jim Crow, redlining, mass incarceration. You live and die a statistic, recycled through the machinery of racial capitalism. Your descendants carry your name, or what's left of it, through systems still rigged, still echoing the trade. You weren't killed by disease or disaster. You were killed by efficiency. By ships engineered to store pain. By ports built to erase identity. By the idea that a human could be property and that progress required it. The slave trade wasn't a tragedy. It was a strategy. And it worked. You stand in the desert, 1945, watching the future arrive in a blinding flash. It's called Trinity, the first successful test of the atomic bomb, and it lights the New Mexico sky like a second sun, one made not for life, but for erasure. You feel the heat from miles away. The sound comes seconds later, deep and godlike, rattling your bones like judgment. You don't clap. You don't cheer. You just stare, because you've seen what science can do when it stops asking why and starts asking how big. The atomic bomb is the answer to centuries of ambition. Chemistry gave us fire. Industry gave us steam. Physics gives us extinction. Born from equations, grown in secrecy, and birthed in a moment of unimaginable arrogance. The bomb is not a weapon. It is a concept made real. You can't unsee it. You can't outrun it. You can only drop it. And we do. On August 6, 1945, a plane called Enola Gay flies over Hiroshima. Inside, little boy, a 9,700-pound device filled with uranium-235 and the concentrated hopes of an arms race disguised as salvation. The bomb falls for 43 seconds. Then 70,000 people vanish in less time than it takes to blink. Flesh turns to ash. Shadows burn into walls. Eyeballs boil in sockets. And yet, the city remains, flattened, smoldering, screaming. 3 days later. We do it again. Nagasaki. Fat man. This time it's plutonium. This time it's faster. This time it's worse. The death toll climbs into 6 figures. Survivors wander like ghosts, their skin sloughing off, their breath laced with radiation. The air stays poisoned. The rain turns black. The children are born wrong. The war ends and the world celebrates. Victory, they say. Peace. But it's the kind of peace you get after pulling the pin on a grenade and holding it forever. The atomic bomb doesn't stay a secret. It breeds. Russia builds one. Then Britain. France. China. Eventually, North Korea. India. Pakistan. The club expands. The arsenals multiply. By the 1960s, we have enough bombs to kill everyone on Earth twice. The Cold War turns the entire planet into a hostage situation. Nuclear drills in schools. Fallout shelters in backyards. Movies about mutants. Missiles in Cuba. Fingers twitch over red buttons. For decades, global diplomacy is conducted like a Mexican standoff with equations. Mutually assured destruction becomes official doctrine. The only reason we don't all die is because everyone knows that if they push the button, they die too. The bomb is both sword and shield, both sin and salvation. It makes nations untouchable. It turns physics into politics. It builds empires on fear. And it never forgets. Every test leaves a scar on the earth, on the atmosphere, on the DNA of people who never got a vote. Bikini Atoll. Nevada. Semipalatinsk. Wind scale. Chernobyl's shadow isn't an accident, it's a prophecy. The bomb is patient. It waits. Even when unused, it shapes our lives. Dictates who can threaten whom. Who can invade. Who gets to live. You weren't killed by detonation. You were killed by deterrence. By the knowledge that your life depends on the steady hands of men in rooms you'll never see. The bomb taught us that we are gods now and also that we are children, playing with fire we can neither control nor extinguish. It's not just a weapon. It's a mirror. And what it reflects is our appetite for power, dressed up as protection, ready to vaporize everything at the speed of light. You're pregnant in 1959 and you're doing everything right. Vitamins, checkups, rest. But the morning sickness won't quit. You're vomiting every day. Weak, dizzy, afraid to eat. Then your doctor, in his white coat of unquestioned authority, hands you salvation in a pill. It's called thalidomide. Sounds soft, scientific, safe. Non-addictive. Non-toxic. Non-sedating unless you want it to be. The perfect drug. He says it's used in Europe. Widely. Successfully. No known side effects. You take it, desperate for relief. Within hours, the nausea vanishes. You sleep through the night. For the first time in weeks, you feel human again. You thank modern science for being so clever. So gentle. So caring. And somewhere deep inside your womb, something goes wrong. But not loudly. Not in pain. Thalidomide doesn't cause miscarriages. It doesn't kill. It just reroutes. Limbs don't grow properly. Organs twist. Nerves tangle. Hands may appear directly from shoulders. Legs may shrink to nubs. Ears, eyes, genitals rearranged like misassembled furniture. And the worst part. You won't know. Not for months. You carry the child, unaware, still swallowing those smooth little pills with relief. You walk around radiant, imagining cribs and lullabies and tiny socks. Your body quietly builds a tragedy, cell by cell. The baby is born. There is silence. In the delivery room. The nurses don't cheer. The doctor doesn't smile. You hear whispers before you hear your child cry if they cry. You see your child's body and your brain tries to unsee it. There are no words for the horror. Only phrases, phocomelia. Malformation. Congenital defects. No one says thalidomide. Not yet. But you remember the pills. And so do thousands of others. Across Europe, across the world, the same nightmare unfolds. An estimated 10,000 babies affected. Most don't survive infancy. The ones who do face a life of prosthetics, surgeries, stairs. Some adapt. Many suffer. And the drug companies. They feign shock. Deny. Stall. They say there's no proof. They say it's genetic. Environmental. Coincidence. But the patent screams. Thalidomide, developed by a German pharmaceutical company, was never properly tested on pregnant animals. It was marketed as harmless. Over the counter in some countries. Prescribed with confidence in others. A miracle sedative. A gentle cure. In reality, it was a teratogen, a developmental time bomb dressed as a bedtime story. The lawsuits begin. The headlines follow. Grieving mothers with missing limb children. Fathers begging for justice. Survivors who never asked to be symbols. The drug is pulled. Slowly. Quietly. Some countries act fast. Others delay. In the United States, the FDA reviewer, Frances Kelsey, blocks its approval, demanding more data. She becomes a hero. But even then, the drug had already trickled into clinical trials. Already harmed lives. Already whispered its toxic lullaby. Across borders. And the science. It learns a brutal lesson. Thalidomide becomes a case study in regulatory failure, in corporate indifference, in the hubris of chemistry. It is proof that safety is often assumed, not proven. That medicine, like war, leaves collateral damage. You weren't killed by disease. You weren't killed by infection. You were killed by treatment. By a drug that promised comfort and delivered calamity. And you were told it was safe because the men in suits said it was. Because the studies weren't done. Because the profits were too tempting. Your child didn't die from nature. They died from negligence. And their body told the truth. That the pharmaceutical ads never would. You trusted the pill. And the pill lied. You don't think about plastic. It's just there, silent, flexible, light. Your toothbrush. Your phone case. Your food container. Your clothing. Your bloodstream. It's 2025, and you're 60% water, 30% carbon, and 10% polyethylene at this point. Plastic was supposed to be a miracle. The great equalizer. The substance that democratized convenience. Born in the early 20th century, perfected by mid-century chemists, and detonated into the global economy after World War II, plastic was progress incarnate. Stronger than nature. Cheaper than glass. Lighter than metal. Impervious to rot. Immune to time. It replaced everything. Wood. Bone. Silk. Ceramic. Entire industries pivoted. Entire nations exported it. It was everywhere, all at once. The packaging. The car parts. The military. The hospitals. The straws. The toys. The syringes. The hope. The problem. It never goes away. You throw it away, but away isn't a place. It's a delay. Plastic doesn't decompose. It photodegrades sunlight. Shatters it into ever tinier pieces, each one a perfect, indigestible ghost. Microplastics, nanoplastics. Particles so small they ride wind currents, cross oceans, enter placentas. They are found in bottled water, breast milk, rain, the Mariana Trench, and your intestines. Your liver doesn't know what to do with them. Your kidneys shrug. Your cells react with low-level panic. No one's sure what they are doing to your DNA, but no one's stopping either. Because plastic is the circulatory system of capitalism. It's cheap to make, easier to sell, and impossible to resist. Biodegradable alternatives exist, but they cost more. And so every shampoo bottle, every takeout fork, every shrink-wrapped cucumber is a chemical curse buried in a landfill or drifting in a gyre, waiting for the end of time. Recycling. A beautiful myth. Less than 10% of plastic ever made has been recycled. The rest is burned, buried, or afloat. It's not a waste issue, it's a production issue. But you've been told it's your fault. Use a metal straw. Bring your own bag. Buy green. But the truth is, the system was built to drown you in plastic. You could live off-grid and still inhale it with every breath of urban air. You could move inland and still eat it in every fish that mistook a bottle cap for food. Wildlife chokes on it. Coral reefs suffocate under it. Sea turtles born into a world already full of plastic live shorter, sicker lives. You were told it would save lives. And it did, for a time. Sterile syringes, lightweight helmets, waterproof electronics. But then it kept going. And going. Until everything was encased. You die in a hospital bed surrounded By plastic, 4 lines, tubing, monitors, casing, casing, casing. Your final breath filtered through synthetic tubing made to last forever. You weren't killed by poison. You were killed by permanence. By a material that doesn't rot, doesn't fade, doesn't ask permission. You trusted progress. It coated your world in plastic wrap. And you never noticed the air holes shrinking. You opened the app. Just for a second. Just to check. And 5 hours later, your neck hurts, your eyes sting, and you're not sure what you've read, but you're definitely angry, or jealous, or despairing, or all three. Welcome to social media. The invention that promised to connect humanity and ended up crowdsourcing the collapse of collective sanity. It began innocently enough. Friend lists. Pokes. Photo albums. A way to stay in touch. To share. To care. But it mutated. Rapidly. The moment algorithms were added, empathy was extracted. Now your feed is not what you want, it's what enrages you. It's what holds your attention hostage. Social media didn't become addictive by accident. It was designed that way. Infinite scroll. Like buttons. Notifications tuned to your dopamine release cycle. You're not a user. You're a data source. A target. A consumer whose preferences, behaviors, and vulnerabilities are cataloged in real time. And weaponized for maximum engagement. You think you're browsing. You're being mined. You think you're sharing. You're being shaped. And what does it shape you into? Someone fragmented. Paranoid. Polarized. You see only what confirms your beliefs. You argue with strangers. You forget why you logged on in the first place. You doom scroll through mass shootings, climate disaster, celebrity drama, and political outrage in the same breath, as if your nervous system was built for that kind of input. It wasn't. But the platform doesn't care. Its job is not to inform or enlighten. Its job is to keep you. Angry users click more. Divided users post more. Outraged users stay longer. Truth becomes optional. Outrage becomes currency. Lies spread 6 times faster than facts, and you're always just one algorithmic nudge away from a rabbit hole you won't crawl out of. Flat Earth. Anti-vax. QAnon. Incels. Conspiracies metastasize like digital tumors, feeding on loneliness and fear. Meanwhile, your attention span shrinks. Your sleep worsens. Your self-worth crumbles under a mountain of filtered photos and performative happiness. You compare your behind the scenes to everyone else's highlight reel and wonder why. You're not enough. Teenagers self-harm to chase likes. Children grow up with a digital mirror that never blinks. Entire generations forget how to be bored. And when you try to leave, you can't. Your friends are there. Your work is there. Your calendar, your photos, your identity. The platform is your scrapbook, your diary, your town square, your stage. You can't unplug without disappearing. So you scroll. Again. You weren't killed by war or disease. You were killed by your own reflection. By a megaphone that amplified every insecurity and echoed every worst instinct back at you. Social media didn't make you antisocial. It made you addicted to being seen. You thought you were posting. But you were the product. And the platform. It was just the mirror, sharpened into a blade. You look back at the species and see a trail of brilliance paved in ruin. You invented wheels. Then tanks. Medicine, then poisons. Connectivity, then isolation. The same hands that painted caves and cracked atoms, that tamed rivers and burned forests, that cured plagues and built new ones, all in the name of progress. Every invention began with hope and ended with paperwork. You weren't doomed by ignorance. You were undone by intelligence. The kind that builds a mousetrap, then forgets who the mouse is. You created tools to solve problems and became dependent on the tools until the tools were the problem. You cut time into pieces, sliced nature into parcels, diced human dignity into spreadsheets. You called it modernity. Called it innovation. And then you called in sick from the anxiety it gave you. This isn't the end of history. Just a reminder that progress doesn't have brakes, only accelerators. You lived through the best inventions humanity ever made. And you barely survived them.